It's the 1122 Wingnut Radio out here for Anarchy Television. And I'm going to tell you something, man. This is nothing but a dog and pony show. This is nothing but the left and the right trying to divide all of us and siphon the wealth from all of us into their pockets. So let's get right in here with this, and hopefully everything will go good and I can make this video work.
Makes millions of dollars. And also, while we're at it, why is it, just out of curiosity, the mayor of Moscow's wife gave your son $3.5 million. What did he do to deserve it? What did he do with Burisma to deserve $183,000?
You asked a question, let him answer it.
None of that is true.
Oh, really?
Mr. President, please.
Totally discredited. Totally discredited. And by the way,
just because you say it's discredited doesn't mean it's not true.
It is not true.
Oh, really?
It is true, fucker. You're a liar.
Discussion, please.
It's a fact.
Well, you have raised an issue. Let the Vice President answer.
Discredited.
Did Burisma pay him $183,000 a month with no experience in energy?
Mr. President,
My son did.
We need investigative reporters out there
Mr. President, let him answer.
looking into all of these
He
people,
knows I have the truth.
especially Biden.
The truth.
Especially Biden and all his family.
You are nothing but a snake.
Start digging
Nothing
up
but a liar, Biden.
Start digging up all the skeletons out of his closet.
These are the people who testified under oath.
So let me ask you this.
Don't be afraid, people.
People under.
You got $3.5 million from Moscow.
Don't be afraid.
Testified under oath in his administration, said, "I did my job and I did it very well. I did it
I don't know who
honorably."
they are.
I'll give
Start
you a list of them.
recording these people.
Go ahead, sir.
Auditing all of these
Most
people.
of them because they did a good job.
Some people don't do a
Well,
good
here's
job.
the.
With you,
Go ahead. Wait a minute. You get the final word, Mr.
Well, it's hard to get any word in with this clown. Excuse me, this.
Hey, let me just say, Joe.
No. Mr. President.
$3.5 million,
President.
Joe.
That is simply.
Why did
not
he
true.
deserve $3.5 million from Moscow?
Look, here's the deal.
Yeah,
You wanna talk
the
about
real Russian, the real
I don't
Russiagate,
want to do that. I mean, his family we could talk about all night. His family's
the real Russian collusion.
They lost a fortune by coming down and helping us with government.
And that's such a.
They're right here.
Mr. President.
Every single one of them lost
This
a
is not
fortune.
about my
President,
family or his
helping us
family,
with
it's
government.
about your family.
They didn't
The American
put $3.5
people.
million
He
dollars
doesn't, that's not true. It doesn't want to talk about what you need. You, the American people. It's about you. That's what
What we need is to get rid of these fucking politician commies. All these commies. We need them all out of this country. That's what we need. That's what the American people need.
talking about.
Oh, yeah. Fuck you, Biden.
We're moving on.
That's what we're all saying. Fuck you, Biden.
It's a very important.
You commie bastard. We need to ship your ass off to goddamn China somewhere.
Now, sir.
That's what we need to do as American people. Haul your ass off to China somewhere and dump you off.
True.
Gentlemen, I hate to raise my voice, but it seems to be, why should I be different than the two of you? So here's the deal.
Good point.
We have 6 segments. We have ended that segment. We're going to go to the next segment. In that segment, you each are going to have 2 uninterrupted moments. In those 2 uninterrupted minutes, Mr. President, you can say anything you want. I'm going to ask a question about race, but if you want to answer about something else, go ahead. But I think that the country would be better served if we allowed both people to speak.
Why don't you ask about eliminating the Federal Reserve and the IRS
Frankly, you've been doing more.
so we can liquidate the debt? Why don't you ask that?
Sir, less
There's
than
plenty.
No, less than you have. Let's please continue on. The issue of race. Vice President Biden, you say that President Trump's response to the violence in Charlottesville 3 years ago, when he talked about very
this is
fine
bullshit.
people on both sides, was what directly led you to launch
It's a bullshit
this run for
fucking
president.
question.
President Trump, you have often said that you believe you have done more for black Americans than any president, with the possible exception of Abraham Lincoln. My question for the two of you is, why should voters trust you rather than your opponent to deal with the race issues facing this country over the next 4 years? Vice President Biden, you go first.
It's about equity and equality. It's about decency. It's about the Constitution. And we
Oh,
have
you
to
fuck
walk
you.
away from
Don't even mention the
trying to
Constitution.
require equity for
Don't even mention it,
for the
motherfucker.
whole of America. But we've never accomplished it. But we've never walked away from it like he has done. It is true. The reason I got in the race is when those people, close your eyes, remember what those people look like coming out of the fields carrying torches, their veins bulging, spewing, and just spewing anti-Semitic bile, and accompanied by the Ku Klux Klan.
Fuck
The
you
only
and your
one that got killed.
anti-Semitic
And they asked
bullshit.
the president what he thought. He said there were very fine people on both sides. No president has ever said anything like that.
Finish this.
It is whose
Now,
two
second,
minutes, sir.
second point I'd make to you is that when Floyd was killed, when Mr. Floyd was killed,
Yeah, fuck
there was a
Floyd.
peaceful
He
protest
was
in
not a
front of the White
saint.
House.
Fuck
What did he
that
do?
little
He came
motherfucker.
out of his bunker, had the military
Peaceful
use
protest
tear gas
my
to
ass.
walk across to a church and hold up a Bible. And then what happened after that? The bishop of that very church said that it was a disgrace. The general who was with him said all he ever wants to do is divide people, not unite people at all. This is a president who has used everything as a dog whistle to try to generate racist hatred, racist division. This is a man who, in fact, you talk about helping African Americans. 1 in 1,000 African Americans has been killed because of the coronavirus.
That is
And if he
such
doesn't do something
bullshit.
quickly, by the end of the year, 1 in 5.
That is a lie.
Killed. 1 in 500 African Americans.
That is a lie.
This man is a savior of African Americans.
That is a lie.
Shares at all? This man's done virtually nothing. Look, the fact is that you have to look at what he talks about. You have to look at what he did. And what he did has been disastrous for the African American community.
So,
President Trump, you have 2 minutes. Why should Americans trust you over your opponent to deal with
they did
racism?
a crime bill, 1994, where you call them super predators, African Americans, the super predators, and they've never forgotten it. They've never forgotten it, Joe.
No, sir, it's his 2 minutes.
So you did that, and they called you a super predator, and I'm letting people out of jail now that you have treated the African American population community, you have treated the black community about as bad as anybody in this country. You did the and that's why, if you look at the polls, I'm doing better than any Republican has done in a long time, because they saw what you did. You call them super predators, and you've called them worse than that. Because you look back at your testimony over the years.
Yeah, you called them
worse than
little
that. As far as the church
cockroaches.
is concerned,
Little
and as far as the
cockroaches.
generals are
That's what
concerned,
you did,
we got
Biden.
the
You said that on camera. You called little black kids cockroaches.
Total support. Law enforcement, almost every law enforcement group in the United States. I have Florida, I have Texas, I have Ohio, I have Portland. The sheriff just came out today and he said, I support President Trump. I don't think you have any law enforcement. You can't even say the word law enforcement, because if you say those words, you're going to lose all of your radical left supporters. And why aren't you saying those words, Joe? Why don't you say the words law enforcement? Because you know what? If they called us in Portland, we would put out that fire in a half an hour, but they won't do it because they're run by radical left Democrats. If you look at Chicago, if you look at any place you want to look,
Fuck the
Seattle,
police state.
They heard we were coming in the following day and they put up their hands and we got back Seattle. Minneapolis, we got it back, Joe, because we believe in law and order, but you don't. The top 10 cities and just about the top 40 cities are run by Democrats and in many cases radical left. And they've got you wrapped around their finger, Joe, to a point where you don't want to say anything about law and order. And I'll tell you what, the people of this country want and demand law and order, and you're afraid to even say it.
All right. I want to return to the question of race.
Yeah.
Vice President
Well, that
Biden,
statement
after
right
the grand
there,
jury in the
that's like
Breonna
saying,
Taylor
the
case
people demand
decided not to charge
and
any
want
of the police
chains of their
with
own
homicide.
enslavement.
You said it raises the question, quote, whether justice could
bullshit.
be equally applied in America. Do you believe that there is a separate but unequal system of justice for blacks in this country?
Yes, there's systemic injustice in this country, in education and work and in law enforcement and the way in which it's enforced. But look, the vast majority of police officers are good, decent, honorable men and women. They risk their lives every day to take care of us. But there are some bad apples, and when they occur, when they find them, they have to be.
That's a lie
They
also.
have to be held accountable.
The good ones are the ones that are very few. There's the good ones are the very few. There are no good cops anymore.
At the White House.
If there were good cops, there would be no bad cops.
And we're going to work this out. We're gonna
You
work this out.
fuckers,
We're gonna change
all you
the
want is to bring on the police state.
And when these
That's
things
all you
happen,
want, is
these
to bring
cops
on the
aren't happy
communist
with what
agenda.
happened To George Floyd, these cops aren't happy to see what happened to Breonna Taylor. Most don't like it. But we have to have a system where people are held accountable. And by the way, violence in response
We need
is
to
never
hold
appropriate.
all you
Never
politicians
appropriate.
accountable.
Peaceful protest.
Hold
is.
your You're not willing to hold these police officers and government officials accountable.
Run through the middle of
You're not willing to take away their qualified immunity, are you, Biden?
You say peaceful
President
protest.
Trump,
No, it's
I'm not
not, but
asking-
you say it is.
President Trump, I'd like to continue with the
Yes,
issue of race, and I
please.
promise we're going to get to the issue of law and order in a moment. This month, your administration directed federal agencies to end
We need to
racial
end
sensitivity
qualified immunity
training
for police
that addresses white privilege or critical race theory. Why did you decide to do that, end racial sensitivity training, and do you believe that there is systemic racism in this country, sir?
I ended it because it's racist. I ended it because a lot of people were complaining that they were asked to do things that were absolutely insane, that it was a radical revolution that was taking place in our military, in our schools, all over the place.
Yeah.
And you know it, and so does
Yeah.
everybody
Hey,
else.
Biden, while you were vice president, yeah, letting all these trannies
If you were
use the American people's tax dollars to go get damn, transvestite operations and shit in the military.
To teach very big
I'm not
ideas.
sitting there working my ass off for you to steal my earnings to pay for some tranny
And I'm not going to do that. I'm not
to
gonna
get an operation because they're in the military.
to the core.
And that's exactly what you
They were
and
teaching people
Obama did
our country is
in
a
your,
horrible place. It's
under
a
your
horrible
watch.
place, and they were teaching people
Biden.
to hate our country. And I'm not going to allow that to happen.
Vice President Biden?
Nobody's doing that. He's
Oh,
the
you-
racist.
you just don't know.
Here's the deal. I know a lot more about
You
this.
don't
than
know.
he does.
Let him finish.
You don't know shit,
The
Biden.
fact is that
You can't even fucking keep your own goddamn thoughts straight without looking at your
what
notes.
people feel like, what insults them, what is demeaning to them. It's important to people know they don't want to. Many people don't want to hurt other people's feelings, but it makes a big difference. It makes a gigantic difference in the way a child is able to grow up and have a sense of self-esteem. It's a little bit like how this guy and his friends look down on so many people. They look down their nose on people like Irish Catholics.
what are you
like
talking
me.
about
They look
yourself,
at people.
Biden?
They look down on people who don't.
See, there's that projectionist bullshit. You're projecting what you do onto others.
In fact, we're all Americans. The only way we're going to bring this country together is bring everybody together. There's nothing we cannot do if we do it together.
We the people are going to get ourselves together. We're going to haul all of you motherfuckers out.
I mean, President Trump, sir.
All of you motherfuckers.
Biden administration, there was tremendous division. There was hatred. You look at Ferguson, you go to many places. Look at Oakland. Look what happened in Oakland. Look what happened in Baltimore. Look what happened. Frankly, it was more violent than what I'm even seeing now. But the reason is that the Democrats that run these cities don't want to talk like you about law and order.
Violent
You
crime.
still haven't mentioned.
Violent
Are you in
crime.
favor of law and order?
I'm in favor of law. You follow
Are you in
it, and a
favor
little
of
bit of
law and order? Come on,
Yes, I'm
say
in
it.
favor.
You asked a question, let him finish.
Law and order.
This is
Law and order.
Let him.
Law and order with justice, where people get treated fairly. And the fact of the matter is, violent crime went down 15% in our administration.
Bullshit!
On his watch.
Went down
He-
much more
He
than
had.
ours.
All right, we're done.
I
You're
call
gonna-
bullshit.
You're going
States of America, we
Mr.
were
President,
breaking every record in the
Mr.
book.
President, you're going to be very happy because we're now going to talk about law and
Places
order.
we had trouble with Democratic-run cities.
That's exactly my question. There has been a dramatic increase in homicides in America this summer particularly, and you often blame that on Democratic mayors and Democratic governors, but in fact there have been equivalent spikes in Republican-led cities like Tulsa and Fort Worth. So the question is this really a party issue?
I think it's a party issue. You can bring in a couple of examples, but if you look at Chicago, what's going on in Chicago, where 53 people were shot and 8 died. Shot. If you look at New York, where it's going up like nobody's ever seen anything, the numbers are going up 100, 150, 200%. Crime. It is crazy what's going on. And he doesn't want to say law and order because he can't, because he'll lose his radical left supporters. And once he does that, it's over with. But if he ever got to run this country and they ran it the way he would want to run it, we would have, our suburbs would be gone. By the way, our suburbs would be gone. And you would see problems like you
He
never
wouldn't know a suburb unless he took a wrong turn.
Oh, I know suburbs.
He would not.
So much
I was
better.
Wait a minute.
I was raised in the suburbs. This is not 1950. All these dog whistles and racism don't work anymore. Suburbs are by
Dog
and large
whistles.
integrated.
Listen to this
People today
bullshit.
driving their kids to
It's
soccer
nothing but
practice and
projectionist.
Black and white and Hispanic in the same car as there have been any
You don't
time in
give a
the
shit
past.
about
What
people.
really is a threat to the suburbs and their safety is his failure to deal with COVID. They're dying in the suburbs. His failure to deal with the environment. They're being flooded. They're being burned out because
That's because the government's using weapons of the fucking weather manipulation.
No, and
Fucker.
in the joint recommendation that came from the Biden-Bernie Sanders task force, you talked about, quote, reimagining policing. First of all, what does reimagining policing mean, and do you support?
It means
Let me, if I might finish the question. What does reimagining policing mean, and do you support the Black Lives Matter call for community control of policing?
Look, what I support is the police having the opportunity to deal with the problems they face. And I'm totally opposed to defunding the police officers. As a matter of fact, local police, the only one defunding in his budget calls for a $400 million cut in local law enforcement assistance. They need more assistance. They need, when they show up for a 9/11 call, to have someone with them as a psychologist or psychiatrist to keep them from having to use.
No,
force.
that's just more money out of our
We have
pockets.
to have community.
You want to siphon more money out of our pockets to give these people a fucking job.
That's when crime went
In the
down.
public
It didn't go up,
sector.
It went down. And so
Public
we have to
sector
be
does nothing but siphon the earnings out of our pockets.
Funding the
That
police.
is not true.
He doesn't have any law
Well, you,
support.
look,
He has no law enforcement
that's not
support.
true.
Almost
That's
nothing.
not. Look,
Oh, really? Who do you have? Name one group that supports you. Name one group that came out and supported you. Go
Look,
ahead.
look.
Think. We have time.
we don't have time to do
No,
anything.
think
All right,
about
sir.
Name
folks,
one law enforcement group that came out and
I think,
supported
gentlemen, I
you.
think I'm going to take back the
There
moderator.
are.
Look at you. Look at you, Biden.
To another
You're
section.
trying really hard. Look in the camera.
Many cities
Try to pull them heartstrings. Look into the camera.
More than 100 straight days.
Come on, I wanna hear it.
protests.
Here's the deal again. I need to take another drink, Biden. Come on.
Turned into riots. Mr. Vice President,
Come on, Biden.
you say that
What's the
people who
deal?
commit crimes should be held accountable. The question I have, though, is as the Democratic nominee, and earlier tonight you said that you are the Democratic Party right now, have you ever called the Democratic mayor of Portland or the Democratic governor of Oregon and said, hey, you got to stop this, bring in the National Guard, do whatever it takes, but you stop the days and months of violence in Portland?
I don't hold public office now. I am a former vice president. I've made it clear in my public statements that the violence should be prosecuted. It should be prosecuted, and anyone who commits it
But
should
you've
be
never called
prosecuted.
for the people, the leader, excuse me, sir, you have never called for the leaders in Portland and in Oregon to call us, bring in the National Guard and knock off 100 days of riots.
They can, in fact, take care of it if he just stay out of the way. Look, here,
Really?
here-
Oh, really?
here's the thing.
I sent in the U.S. Marshals to get the killer of a young man in the middle of the street. They shot him, and for 3
Mr.
days,
President Trump-
Portland
President
wouldn't do
Trump-
anything. I had to send in the U.S. Marshals.
President
They took
Trump-
care of business.
Go ahead, sir.
And by the way, his own former spokesperson said, riots and chaos and violence help his cause. That's what this is all about.
I don't know who said that.
I do.
Who?
I think Kellyanne Conway.
I don't think she said.
She said that. And so here's the,
All right.
here's the point.
Go
The
ahead.
point is that that's what he just keeps trying to rile everything up. He doesn't want to calm things down. Instead of going in and talking to people and saying, let's get everybody together, figure out how to deal with this. What's he do? He just pours gasoline in the fire constantly,
And-
every single solitary
Okay,
time.
and to in this button up this segment, I'm going to give you a minute to answer, sir. You have repeatedly criticized.
I have to answer his statement.
You have
His
repeatedly.
statement?
You have
Just
repeatedly.
a
No,
second.
you've been talking back
made
and
a
forth.
statement.
I'm asking you.
I would love to end it.
Sir,
I would love to end it, and
You know,
we
if you
would-
want to switch seats,
We would very quickly.
We can do that, but I'm
Send in the National Guard, it would be over. There'd be no problem.
Okay.
But they don't want to accept the National Guard.
You have repeatedly criticized the vice president for not specifically calling out Antifa and other left-wing
That's right.
extremist groups. But are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups
Sure.
and to say that they
Militia
need to
groups?
stand down and not
Militia is the people of this country.
as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland.
Sure,
Are you
I'm willing
prepared
to
to
do that,
specifically
but
do it?
I
Go
would
ahead,
say
sir.
I would say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right wing.
what are you saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see
Well,
peace.
then do it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it. You want to call him? What do you want to call him? Give me a name. Give me a
White
name. Go ahead.
supremacists
Who
and
would
white
you like me to condemn?
Proud supremacists and right
Proud Boys,
militia.
stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. Somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not a right-wing problem. This is a left-wing.
FBI director
This is a left-wing problem.
white supremacist. Antifa's an idea, not an
Oh,
organization.
you got it.
Oh, you motherfucker.
It's an idea.
FBI is FBI director.
You are a delusional little motherfucker.
Sir, we're moving on to the next.
Everybody
We're
When a
moving.
fat hits you over the head, that's not an idea.
Everybody in
Antifa
your
is
administration
bad.
tells you the truth is a bad idea.
Can I tell you what?
You have no idea.
Antifa is a dangerous
All right,
radical
gentlemen, we're
group.
now moving on to the Trump
And
and
you ought to be
Biden
careful of
records.
them. They'll overthrow you.
When a
in
president,
seconds.
I'm going to ask a question. When the president seeks a second term, it is generally a referendum on his record. But Vice President Biden, you like to quote one of your dad's sayings, which is, don't compare me to the almighty, compare me to the alternative. And in this case, sir, you are the alternative. Looking at both of your records, I'm going to ask each of you, why should voters elect you president over your opponent? In this segment, President Trump, you go first, 2 minutes.
Because there has never been an administration or president who has done more than I've done in a period of 3.5 years. And that's despite the impeachment hoax. And you saw what happened today with Hillary Clinton, where it was a whole big con job. But despite going through all of these things, where I had to fight both flanks and behind me and above, there has never been an administration that's done what I've done.
Look at him
The greatest
studying his
before COVID
notes.
came in, the greatest
He's
economy,
studying his notes.
lowest unemployment
Because
number.
all these
Everything was good.
questions are
Everything was good. There was
predetermined.
unity going on.
And they were all
Calling me for the first time in years. They were
given a heads
They were
up.
saying, it's
Trump
not
doesn't have to
right.
read any
What happened,
notes.
We got hit, but now we're building it back.
I
up
will
again.
say that about
The
Trump.
rebuilding of the
He's
military,
better on his
Space
feet than
Force, and all
Biden
the
will
other
ever
things.
be.
A fixing of the VA, which was a mess under him. 308,000 people died.
He's better on his
in that
feet
war
than
for health
Biden
care.
has ever been.
And we now got a 91% approval rating at the VA, our vets. We take care of our vets. But we've rebuilt our military. The job that we've done, and I'll tell you something, some people say maybe the most important. By the end of the first term, I'll have approximately 300 federal judges and Court of Appeals judges, 300, and hopefully 3 great Supreme Court justices. That is a record the likes of which very few people, and you know one of the reasons I'll have so many judges? Because President Obama and him left me 128 judges to fill. When you leave office, you don't leave any judges. That's like, you just don't do that. They left 128 openings, and if I were a member of his party, because they have a little different philosophy, I'd say if you left us 128 openings, you can't be a good president, you can't be a good vice president. But I want to thank you, because it gives us almost, it'll probably be above that number by the end of this term.
I'm sorry.
300 judges, it's a record.
Looking at both your records, why
This
should
is still a dog and
elect
pony
the
show.
president As opposed to President Trump, you have 2 minutes.
This is still a dog and pony show.
We become weaker,
These people are not our masters.
poorer,
These people are not our rulers.
and more violent.
They're not our leaders,
Vice
people.
President, we inherited a recession.
We don't need them.
We left him a booming economy.
We don't need these people.
With regard to being weaker, the fact is that I've gone head to head with Putin and made it clear to him we're not going to take any of his stuff. He's Putin's puppy. He still refuses to even say anything to Putin about the bounty on the heads of American soldiers.
Your son got $3.5 million.
And by the way, my son...
Wait a minute. Mr. President, your campaign
Yes,
agreed
your son.
both sides would get two.
We need to go after your family, Biden.
Well,
We the people need to go after your family and start revealing all their dirty secrets out, Biden.
No, I'm not asking. That was a rhetorical.
No, we have no interest in your fucking cop-splaining bullshit.
Go ahead.
So, thirdly, we're poor. The billionaires have gotten much more wealthy.
Yeah, because you motherfuckers are doing this grand
Since COVID,
redistribution of wealth.
less
Our wealth.
trouble than you were before. In terms of being more violent, when we were in office, there were 15% less violence in America than there is today.
Bullshit.
The United States, it's on his watch. And with regard to more divided, the nation can't stay divided. We can't be this way. And speaking of my son, the way you talk about the military, the way you talk about them being losers and being and just being suckers. My son was in Iraq. He spent a year there.
For what?
He got the Bronze Star.
For what?
Secret Service Medal. He was not a loser. He was a patriot, and the people left
Bullshit.
behind there were here.
Bullshit.
And I resent.
You're talking
like
about
hell.
Bullshit.
I'm talking about my son, Beau Biden. You're talking
I don't know, Bo. I know Hunter.
Yeah,
Hunter
you know,
got
Bo.
Hunter got thrown out of the military. He was thrown out, dishonorably discharged.
That's not true. It
For
wasn't dishonorably.
cocaine use, and he didn't have a job until you became vice president. And once you
None of
became
that
vice
is
president,
true.
he made a fortune in Ukraine, in China, in Moscow,
That is simply
and various
not
other places.
true.
Yes, it is, Biden.
And he didn't have a
My
job.
son.
We the people, we have found the truth. We know the truth, people.
He's overtaken it. He's fixed it.
You are nothing but a liar.
Proud of him.
But why was he
Proud of
given
my
tens
son.
of millions?
I don't give a shit about your fucking son. I don't give a shit how proud you are. You're proud of a thief. You're proud of a fucking traitor to this country. You're proud of a cocaine addict.
Hear about more substantial
So do I.
subjects. Well, you know, as the moderator, sir, I'm going to make a
No, but when
judgment call
somebody
here.
gets $3.5 million
Okay, right.
from the
Let's
mayor
talk
of
about-
Moscow,
let's talk
it's
about
not
that. It's a
true.
gentleman
That
thing.
report is totally
Why did he do it?
discredited.
I
Mitt
think,
Romney on that committee said it wasn't worth taxpayers'
Yeah.
money, that report. It was written for political reasons.
you know, I'd like to talk about climate change.
So would I.
Okay. The forest
Fuck
fires in the
climate
West
change.
are raging now. They have burned millions of acres. They have
Directed energy weapons up there in
thousands of
space.
people. When
Directing the weather.
the fires on climate
Look
change,
at the government, what is it, the Navy, I think?
knows over your
They
4
say by the year 2029, they will own the weather.
You have rolled back a number
These weather
of
conditions are being
environmental
artificially
What do you
indiced,
believe about
incite.
the science of climate
I'm telling you, the
change?
hurricanes,
And what
the
will you
fires,
do in the next
these
4
are
years?
not natural. These were all artificial.
And air. I want beautiful, clean air. We have now the lowest carbon. If you look at our numbers right now, we are doing phenomenally. But I haven't destroyed our businesses. Our businesses aren't put out of commission. If you look at the Paris Accord, it was a disaster from our standpoint. And people are actually very happy about what's going on because our businesses are doing well. As far as the fires are concerned, you need forest management in addition to everything else. The
Democrat, yeah, exactly. The Democratic fucking leaders
years old and
don't even do forest management.
leaves and everything else. You drop a cigarette in there, the whole forest burns down. You've got to have forest management.
What do you
You've got to have
believe?
cuts.
What do you believe about the science of climate change, sir?
I believe that we have to do everything we can to have immaculate air, immaculate water, and do whatever else we can that's good. You know, we're planting 1 billion trees, the Billion Tree Project, and it's very
Do you
exciting.
believe
for a lot of people.
that human pollution, greenhouse gas emissions contributes to the global warming of
I
this
think
planet?
a lot of things do, but I think to an extent, yes. I think to an extent, yes. But I also think we have to do better management of our forests. Every year, I get the call.
Hey, Biden,
California,
what about all that shit that your administration's been spraying in the air?
If that were,
Huh?
if you had forest management, good forest management, you wouldn't be getting those calls. You know, in Europe, they live their forest cities. They're called forest cities. They maintain their forests. They manage their forests. I was with the head of a major country. It's a forest city. He said, sir, we have trees that are far more, they ignite much easier than California. There shouldn't be that problem. I spoke with the governor about it. I'm getting along very well with the governor. But I said, at some point, you can't every year have hundreds of thousands of acres of land just burned to the ground.
But, sir,
that's burning down because of a lack of
But,
management.
sir, if you believe in the science of climate change, why have you rolled back the Obama Clean Power Plan, which limited carbon emissions in power plants? Why have you relaxed?
Because it was driving energy prices through the sky.
Why have you relaxed fuel economy standards that are going to create more pollution from cars
Well,
and
not
trucks?
really, because what's happening is the car is much less expensive and it's a much safer car, and you're talking about a tiny difference. And then what would happen, because of the cost of the car, you would have at least double and triple the number of cars purchased. We have the old slugs out there that are 10, 12 years old. If you did that, the car would be safer, it would be much cheaper by
But in the case of
$3,500.
California, they've simply
No, but you would
ignored
take a lot of
your
cars
roadmap.
off the market because people would be able to afford a car. Now, and by the way, we're going to see how that turns out. But a lot of people agree with me, many people. The car has gotten so expensive because they have computers all over the place for an extra little bit of gasoline. And, and I'm okay with electric cars too. I think I'm all for electric cars. I've given big incentives for electric cars. But what they've done in California is just crazy.
Vice President Biden, I'd like you to respond to the president's climate change record, but I also want to ask you about a concern. You proposed $2 trillion in green jobs. You talk about new limits, not abolishing, but new limits on fracking.
That billions of dollars is not coming out of Biden's pocket. It's coming out of our pockets.
Gases by 2050. The president says
we're not your fucking slaves, people.
Cost millions of jobs.
I don't give a shit who you are in that fucking job. We're not your fucking slaves.
During our administration, the Recovery Act, I was in charge, able to bring down the cost of renewable energy to cheaper than or as cheap as coal and gas and oil. Nobody's going to build another coal-fired plant in America. No one's going to build another oil-fired plant in America. They're going to move to renewable energy, number one. Number two.
So you're just going to make everybody in the coal-fire industry to just be out of work now? You're going to close down coal mines and stuff like that? And you're going to put those people out of work?
Charging stations and all of the highways that we're going to be
entire towns rely on coal mines.
In fact,
entire towns. You plan on
us to take 4 million.
You plan on
and make sure that
making all those people jobless now.
In a way that, in fact,
that's your plan.
They'll emit significantly less gas and oil because the heat will not be going out. There's so many things that we can do now to create thousands and thousands of jobs. We can get
fuck your communist new Green Deal agenda.
Production by 2035. Not only not costing people jobs, creating millions of good paying jobs, not $15.
The government doesn't create jobs.
Wage by having a new
creates public sector jobs,
and the first thing
which is paid by us in the private sector.
I will join the Paris.
You're just siphoning off of our labor, motherfucker.
And talk about someone who has no relationship with foreign policy. Brazil, the rainforests of Brazil are being torn down, are being ripped down. More carbon is absorbed in that rainforest than every bit of carbon that's emitted in the United States. Instead of doing something about that, I would be gathering up and making sure we had the countries of the world coming up with $20 billion and say, here's $20 billion. Stop.
It's not your fucking money.
Forest.
It's not your fucking earnings, motherfucker. Why don't you pull that $25 billion out of your own fucking bank account, motherfucker?
Environmental interests and economic interests, and he's drawn his line.
Well, he hadn't drawn a line. He still, for example, he wants to make sure that methane's not a problem. You can now emit more methane without it being a problem. Methane. This is a guy who says that you don't have to have mileage standards for automobiles that exist now. This is a guy who says that the fact that it's all true. And here's the deal.
Talking about the Green New Deal, and it's not $2 billion or $20 billion, as you said. It's $100 trillion.
$100 trillion that he wants to siphon out of my pocket?
It's the
And everybody else that work in the private sector, people wake up.
Our systems are out where they
$100 trillion.
You know, that's not true either, right?
Not
this
true.
This is a 100 trillion.
Look,
That's more money than our
that is-
country could make in
is
100
simply
years if we're
not
going
the case.
All right, let me because I actually, wait a minute, sir. I actually have studied your plan, and it includes upgrading 4 million buildings, weatherizing 2 million homes over 4 years, building 1.5 million energy-efficient homes. So the question becomes, the president is saying, I think some people who support the president would say that sounds like it's going to cost a lot of money and hurt the economy.
What it's going to do is going to create thousands and millions of jobs, good paying jobs.
No, it's not.
He doesn't know how to do that.
$100 billion.
The fact is, it's going to create millions of good paying jobs.
No, it's
And
not.
Tax incentives to people for people to weatherize, which he wants to get rid of. It's going to make the economy much safer. Look how much
It's going to make all of us poorer because you're going to use the government gun to steal our fucking money.
Weapon on them they made.
I never said that.
Or,
He did say that.
correction, our fiat currency that we
We're
earn.
going to be in a position
Because there is no money in this country. The whole country is bankrupt since 1913 because of people like you,
in
Biden.
better shape. We spend billions of dollars now, billions of dollars on floods, hurricanes, rising seas. We're in real trouble. Look what's happening just in the Midwest with these storms that come through and wipe out entire sections and counties in Iowa. That didn't happen before. They're because
That's
of
because of
global
weather
warming.
modification, dumbass. You're the ones you're fucking doing it.
We, in fact, but the rest of the world, we got to get
Seriously,
come on.
people.
That's what we have to get back into.
Just Google it. Just Google
All right, gentlemen.
businesses that actually have weather modification or cloud seeding as a service. Look how much money that they charge for this. Look how many businesses come up.
Made a couple of statements.
Just Google it.
Green New Deal is
All right.
$100 trillion.
Governments are the only ones that can afford this. The average people can't afford weather modification.
Made a statement about the military.
Oh, we're not going to sit there just because you look at the camera doesn't mean shit, Biden.
I never said it.
Okay.
That is
What
not
he did
Sir,
was
you
he
got in this
said,
segment.
he called
Mr.
the
Vice-
military
Mr. Vice President,
stupid bastards.
I
And he
did
said
not
it on
say
tape.
that.
He said,
Mr.
stupid
please,
bastards. He
sir,
said it.
stop.
I would never
I
say
would
that.
Play
Stop.
it. Play it.
Go ahead.
We're
Mr.
on
Vice
tape.
President answered his final question.
The final question is, I can't remember which of all was ranting.
I'm having a little trouble myself, but and about the economy and about this question of what it's going to cost.
The economy.
I mean, the Green New Deal and the idea of what your environmental changes will do.
The Green New Deal will pay for itself as we move forward. You're not going
Oh
to
my
build
God.
plants that, in fact, are great.
It's a socialist communist agenda,
You
fuckhead.
support?
No, I don't support.
And you are nothing but a
Oh,
communist.
that's a big statement.
I
That
support
means you
the
just
plan.
lost the radical left.
I support
You
the
don't?
Biden plan that I put forward.
Okay.
The Biden plan, which is different than what he calls the radical Green New Deal.
All right, gentlemen, final segment.